Why do people idolize Nuno Oliveira? What made him so great? How does this knowledge help you and your horse? I'm here to tell you. I'm Rupert Isaacson from Long Ride Home. And as you know, if you've been watching our videos, what we do with our Helios Harmony program is we take the knowledge of the old masters and we make it available to you in today's modern biomechanical horse world to understand how to achieve the harmony and connection with your horse. Have you been confused about which method to try? There seem to be so many out there. Well, guess what? You're in great company. Even the great Nuno Oliveira himself had this problem. And so understanding him and what he did and how he got through this problem helps us to get through ours. Because if we follow the same process, and the Helios Harmony course basically does follow that same process, we will get out of that confusion. Make sure you stick around to the end, and I'll give you 2 really good hacks on how to apply his method to your horse. Okay. So Nuno Oliveira began his life in Portugal, coming out of a tradition that was still very pure, very much the old Baroque style, but with a real emphasis either on performances on horses for the royal family or bullfighting, basically combat on horseback. And today we would call those doma classica, the balletic form of dressage, and reoniero, which is the bullfighting form of dressage. They are both equally valid dressage traditions. There's a third too, which is doma vaquera, the cow style. People tend to call it working equitation now. All those 3 styles are forms of dressage. What we think of dressage in terms of sport dressage today is actually only one small niche. And even that comes out of these 3 other forms. Okay, so Nuno was born at a time when these forms were existing, but the modern world was changing and wanting to go a little bit towards sport, and also where people just wanted to be able to train their horses privately at home for joy and connection. He also wanted to find a way to do this. So he himself jumped around. He started by first learning the stuff I talked about just now, these 3 styles, but then he thought, no, I need something more modern. So he went to what was then a fairly recent French training tradition, invented by a French genius called Baucher in the 19th century. And this today is still practiced by many riders. However, Nuno soon found that there were some limitations to this. It worked very well with certain kinds of horse, particularly thoroughbreds and Anglo-Arabs and horses that were very hot and tended to rush. It seemed that Baucher's system was very, very good for these horses, but there was a problem. With certain horses, it created a hollow outline and a bit too much underneck. And with other horses, it worked very well. So Nuno thought, I need something more. So then he started saying, well, up there in Northern Europe, they're breeding these warm bloods. Maybe we need to look at what system they're using. At the same time as Baucher was operating in the 19th century in France, there was another legendary man, and we're going to take you through these other old masters, called Gustav Steinbrecht. And Steinbrecht was coming up with a form of training for this new type of warm blood that likes to go very, very forward because it comes from carriage horse lines originally, in which the shoulder must push against a collar to pull the cart. When a horse pulls a cart, it doesn't actually pull it, pushes against a collar. So these horses were selectively bred for hundreds of years, if not more, to sort of go forward almost like a steam train. How do you take this type of horse, designed for a bigger rider, people were getting bigger, particularly in Germany, and get them to be light and dancey? So Steinbrecht came up with a way of allowing this horse to go very, very forward and then gradually introducing bits of sideways lateral work until gradually they got smaller and smaller and the horse began to collect. But Oliveira found with certain types of horse, this didn't work so well. And it made a horse that was too long and low, too pushing forward. Other horses, it worked fantastically. So what did he do? He realized that both Baucher and Steinbrecht were trying to achieve the same thing. And what they were trying to actually do was get back to the style of an 18th century French guy called François Robichon de la Guérinière. Most of us call him La Guérinière. This guy in the 18th century wrote a book that was basically designed for what today we would think of as the Iberian horse or the Baroque horse. And it was relatively simple and brought the horse to collection very, very easily. What Nuno said is, okay, we've got these new modern types of horse. We've got this thoroughbredy Anglo-Araby type horse over here in France, and we've got this in England, and we've got these warm bloods, these heavier, more pushy, but very powerful horses coming out of the northern part of Europe. How do we combine La Guérinière and Steinbrecht and Baucher all together and synthesize them so that all these horses can move like La Guériniere's horses? And what he realized was that you had to know the physical and emotional and psychological type of your horse. And then you could decide which quantity of which of these three approaches to use, but always you were trying to get back to La Guérinière. So he set out to prove it, and he proved it. And that's why he became a legend, because he took all these different kinds of horses and made them all look absolutely amazing and light and dancey. And he could ride them effectively bridleless and with just a piece of silk in the mouth sometimes. And he brought classical equestrian art back into the mainstream this way. So the lesson to take from him is that you actually do need to know a little bit about Baucher, and you need to know a little bit about Steinbrecht, and you need to know a lot about La Guérinière. And if you combine these things, and you also understand what is Doma Vaquera, working equitation, what is Reonero, the combat style, what is Doma Classica, the balletic style, and you get a solid overview of all of these things, then you know where to position yourself with your horse. I promised you 2 hacks. What kind of horse do you have? So if you have something that's very light and hot, you're going to need to go a little bit more towards Baucher. If you have something very warm-bloody, you're going to need to go a little bit more towards Steinbrecht. But you're also going to need to know La Guérinière, so that you know where you're trying to bring these two types of horses. So if you've got the warm blood, you are going to need to go forward more long and low, and eventually bring the horse into collection. If you're dealing with these thoroughbredy Anglo-Araby, hotter types, you're going to need to go a little bit more Baucher and work a little bit more in place with a lot of jaw flexions and a lot of in-hand work. If you are dealing with an Iberian horse, you can go straight to La Guérinière because that's what it was designed for. So what have you got? Have you got a cob? If you've got a cob, it's somewhere between 70% Steinbrecht, 10% Baucher, and the rest is going to be La Guérinière. If you're dealing with a thoroughbred Anglo-Arab, it's going to be maybe 70% Baucher, maybe 20% Steinbrecht, and the rest bringing it back to La Guérinière. Where is your horse? We're going to be explaining all of this in even more detail in these videos that you can see coming up. Stick with us. And if this was helpful, also go to our Helios Harmony free course down below. Give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, tell a friend. It really helps the channel. And we'll see you on the next video.